we're just a little bit wild and we like to have fun. And we decided that we weren't going to live small anymore, that we had all these chains and these restrictions in this life that was beautiful and really is beautiful for some people. But for us, it was like not actually like our destiny. Our soul blueprint wanted something different. And we had to break free and say goodbye and close door. And that led on this incredible journey. We were nomadic for 18 months in total. And that's a whole, like, we went more than Bali. And ultimately, where we are now is Colorado.
Take the time to remind yourself that it all starts inside yourself.
Wake up feeling stuck every day, then you gotta realize that it's all in your mindset. Read about that meditation, you go get around to it, you just haven't had the time yet. Yeah, I bet. Best thing that you could invest in is you could have the results or could have the excuse. Only one life, so take care of what you choose. And I ain't preaching, I'm just telling you the truth. Wake up.
Welcome to Bombastik Broadcasting with Kat, Kim, and Sue.
As you know, here at Bombastik Broadcasting, we believe in shining the light on all things bombastic and illuminating the folks who are stoking the fire in their souls, one podcast at a time. So here tonight with us, we have Britton and Carolee Beckham, and they have a cool story because a lot of us has probably gone through some of this, and so they were raised in a strict dogma of the Mormon Church, and with infidelity threatening their marriage and family, found themselves on a cliff edge. Through a deep commitment to heal, these two left everything they knew to find themselves. Whew. Reads like an epic journey, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it
Over
was.
a period of 5 years, they rebooted their relationship and traveled the world seeking their truth with 4 kids in tow. They have emerged on the other side of as a powerfully embodied and awakened couple with a powerful message to share. With that, they also have a method called ritual shadow work, have a book getting going. So lots of cool stuff to dive into. Welcome, Britton and Carolee. So nice to have you here with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you, ladies.
Yeah, it's great to have you on our podcast. Let's kind of start at the beginning and, let's start at the end of the beginning, perhaps, and how you broke the chains that were holding you back.
So how we broke the chains is we had to go into sort of like when you hit rock bottom, you know, everybody kind of hits that point somewhere in their life at least once. And we were there, and the rock bottom was in multiple areas. You know, it was in our religion, our spiritual connection to God. It was in our relationship. It was in our personal life experience. And at that point, it was like we just had a choice, and the choice was, is this working or is it not? And the first, is it working, was actually around religion and not necessarily around our relationship, although that came in a close second. The reason why the religion was the first was because it was promising us all of the things that we had been told, you know, since we were little and raised in it, that this is what was going to bring us happiness. And so it didn't, and we recognized that, and we had to ask the tough question, being brought up in such a almost cult-like religion that was demanding so much from us and that had sort of planned out our whole life for us, that we had to ask the tough question of like, is this actually the path that we want to walk, or is it even the right path? So that was kind of like initially what really jarred it all. And it was the catalyst of being at rock bottom with all of these things juggling, and the religion was the first thing to go.
Wow. So were you both born into the Mormon religion?
We actually were, yeah. We not only were we born into it, we were 6th generation, each of us. So, you know, we grew up with ancestor stories of our ancestors joined the church in England and Scotland and Ireland and got on boats and then like crossed the ocean, and then they traveled in a wagon across to Utah and settled it. Like, we have stories in our ancestry that go back that far. So it's
No
really was like,
pressure.
yeah,
Right. No pressure there.
you know. So I mean, yeah, it was just so much of our culture, so much of just our family life and our family culture in different ways. With my family, it was maybe even a little bit more strict in some capacity than it was with Britton's family. But we met at church in Utah. Like we It was a little bit of an unconventional start, so to speak, because we were older than you are when you get in most Mormon stories. Like, usually they're like 20, 21. We were 25 and
Yes.
26. Oh my goodness. We were a little bit older.
Will they ever get married? No.
So yeah, it was a deep, like, we're all, like Britton said, all of our life was really planned out. And it was painted in a way, we've really reconciled this past. This is why we can like speak to the Mormon bits, because it's not coming from a place of anger. It's just a place of understanding. In some capacity, it is humorous to us. In some capacity, there really was trauma in it. But on this side of it, we see all of what we've been through as such great teachers, allowing us to now be who we are. And so, when we go to see like a production like the Book of Mormon musical, we are cackling louder than anyone, because there's so many things we actually understand from like a deep lived experience, So I don't know how much more to say about that.
I
But
was so not expecting that show to be what it was. I thought it was going
It
to
was
be like
pretty
a series.
intense.
It was. I
Yeah.
kept waiting for the lightning bolt to come and hit us.
yeah.
Pretty funny. So I didn't even think of Mormonism as starting before Utah. I mean, I guess I just never really thought of it, but like there was Mormonism in Ireland and stuff.
Well, it was started in like the 1800s by a man who may have been doing mushrooms but that's not part of the story, okay? But he was in the woods in New York and had a vision of God and Jesus, and then that whole was
So yeah, it was actually started in the American Northeast,
Okay.
and then it grew, and where they sent missionaries out to Europe, and then they brought those Europeans back over, and by that time the church had kind of moved because of persecution to like Missouri area, like the heartland of America, and then eventually it moved to Utah, and that's where they settled.
So really, being sixth generation Mormons, our roots go back to kind of the beginning. The very
Right.
beginning of like Mormonism, and we even served missions. We're both of us in this lifetime were LDS Mormon missionaries, and then we met at church, and then we got married in one of the more popular of the Mormon temples, the Salt Lake Temple in Salt Lake City, the headquarters, and and then we were raising our family in Utah, doing the thing. Like, we had kids, and we were just going through living in this suburban Utah community, even with a white picket fence. On the outside, it actually looked really quite lovely. But
Right.
what was hiding was so hard. And it cracked us open to like begin to question everything.
That's pretty amazing that you both kind of cracked together. That's pretty unique in itself, I would imagine.
Well, also, and started to grow and learn together. I feel like sometimes one person, sometimes one person is like, oh, and the other person's like, wait, there's nothing to learn here.
You're right. Many couples don't have that connection. And I would also say many couples in the Mormon Church that do get out of the church, a lot of times it's a split, right? One of them does, the other one doesn't. Now, given our situation where infidelity was part of the situation and the pressure of the relationship dynamic at the time, it's even further a miracle that we were both in lockstep as we walked out of it. And honestly, that's why we're here, because we found that there's this deep underlying connection between us that's very spiritual and very ancient. And we acknowledge that even through all of the darkness, there was this love, this underlying love that was present in our hearts for each other. And we simply found it or refound it and reactivated it. And that's why we're sharing this beautiful thing with you guys. So to actually answer your question, I think, Sue, you asked about going to the beginning, or was it Kim? Or going to the end. The end is, how did we do it? Well, we did the inner work. We went inside of ourselves, and we finally addressed the shadows. We addressed the unconsciousness, the patterns, the generational stuff, the stuff that was passed down through Mormon heritage. All of that was deep work that we committed to, and through that effort, we were able to overcome every challenge.
So it was like that thing was almost bigger than you. Like you're talking about, so infidelity, huge, right? And I know a lot of couples don't make it through that. And even more couples have experienced it, right? So that being one huge thing to tackle, and then like the religion and all of the things on top of it. Do you think jumping around a little bit here, but it's so much, right? So do you think your soulmates, was that part of it? Do you believe in soulmates? Is that what got you through doing all of this like heavy hitting work? Because you both seem young also, so it's not like you're here gray and old and telling us about how you made it through, which is like a miracle, do you think anyone can do this work that you've done? Or do you think you have to have like some very deep, like kind of soul connectedness?
Those are such a good question.
Is it?
Those
Did it
are,
make sense?
yeah, those are really
Yeah,
good
I
and deep
totally
questions.
I
I will just
love
say,
it.
firstly, yes, anyone can do this work.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
But there is a more nuance to our situation that I think Carolee can share. But like it's not just that anyone can do the work, it's that we all should be doing the work. And the reason why I say that is because this is actually the emotional healing, the spiritual healing, the mental healing that all of humanity needs. And what we did is we were pressed so deeply in that olive press that it brought us to the point that we finally understood it very clearly, and we were able to commit to it. So what a part of our message is simply, hey, we all need to get on board and start healing. And here's the benefits of it, So do you want to speak to the other thing?
Yeah. So, in our Mormon lifetime, it was very much like this one life is it. This is the one chance. There's no like past lifetimes, and it's pretty much you do it right now and then you live forever in heaven with God, right? And what we believe now, what we feel, what we've learned through our journey of letting go of everything is that there is this interconnectedness of souls, and that this one lifetime is not all that there is. And, so we do actually hold that belief that there's multiple lifetimes and soul groups and like these family and friend connections of this soul tribe. Okay. So with that understanding, like we have also discovered and experienced pretty magical things that have confirmed to both of us that our connection is lifetimes. Like not just once, not just now, like lifetimes of this intertwining union. And one of the pieces, like I've had like past life visions of this. I've, had really deeply connected moments where, all of that. But then I also do astrological work in my own practice and in our ritual shadow work. It's very astrologically guided, and with that, we have had what's called a synastry reading of both of our birth charts. And his Venus is conjunct my moon. And for anyone who follows astrology, there's different synastries that can happen. Like his moon placement is in the same place as our daughter's moon placement, and their emotional language is very obviously the same, and we've noticed that, right? And so, having the Venus and the moon placement actually speaks to karmic lifetimes of lovership and partnership. So like there's some cool magical things that I could like really dive in and go a lot deeper. I'll pause it there to answer your question. But we've had such there was a couple very hard moments where we were coming together and about to break up. How can we consciously uncouple? Because the effects of the betrayals caused such significant PTSD and trauma responses in my own system that like even being with him was triggering, even when nothing was happening. Right. And so like I was on this deep somatic journey to reclaim my power, to reclaim myself, to heal wounds from my childhood. And he was willing to let me not be with him anymore if I needed that. Right. And so we'd come to those moments, but we just fall deeper in hours and hours and hours of arrows together in this like cosmic union. So it really helped like our astrologer who brought this to my attention and showed us this alignment. She did tell me that like this is an alignment that basically says you can go to hell and make it through. So that's truly like our
Because we're in
story.
hell together.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were like,
Several
let's
layers.
try that out.
Yeah, but we just have a lot of the intensity between us is on. It's really good.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Because it can be like hell. I mean, when you're really in the throes of it and like your mind wants it to work so bad, right? And then it's like you get another dagger and another dagger. So I am dying to hear how you made it through all that nervous system, junk and like all because you can accumulate toxicity instead of actually revolving it and sorting out through the love. So can you speak to that, or is it too soon?
Oh no, it's not too soon.
Oh, we can speak to a lot of it. All of it. I mean, that's why, yeah, we feel very empowered right now. There's no the old life is dead. The old experience is dead and integrated, and we are new people. But I love what you said, because like we are walking proof that love can conquer, that love can heal everything. Like we're the embodiment of that, and we really can show the world or whoever's listening, hey, look, there's you don't have to go through infidelity to find deep union. But let me just say something very clearly. You don't just find the person that you're going to be in love with, you build it through challenge and trial together. And we met that, we saw it, and we both knew the truth, which was, even if we separated, Kath, even if we separated, the healing had to occur within our individual lives all the way. And so we were just like, well, let's just commit to each other. We had this moment where we actually went fully all in on each other. It was in 2022. And that was part of our, a big step in the healing direction. But there was just night after night. We have 4 kids. So we were basically running the house and then at about 9 p.m. when everybody's finally down, at 9 p.m. to midnight is when we would basically drop in with each other to do a lot of the healing work. And
That's commitment.
yeah, there's actually quite why don't I start with this? When we left the church, we left the church in like this beautiful mushroom ceremony we had the day before. We went to church with a little bit of that glow, and it gave us the perspective that we needed to see the truth of indoctrination. So we set that aside. That day we were like, we're done, we're walking out. And so we did. And 4 days later we were guided to this school where I found sound healing, which was a concept I'd never even heard of before. Are you guys familiar with sound healing? Okay.
I just had
So
my
love
first too. That was amazing. It was life-changing.
Oh yeah, it's so powerful. And actually so I turned into a sound healer. I found sound healing, and I followed that path. That Carolee found this beautiful emotional intelligence and learning school for our children and for herself. And so she did a whole year certification there. And that was so consequential for our relationship because it helped her heal. She was doing processing like every single week. And then she would bring it into our relationship, help me with processing. We would process with each other. And the principles that we were incorporating from all of that gave us the foundation of how to engage with each other from the perspective of emotional intelligence, instead of bringing the ego and pointing and hurting and all of that. We're like really stepping into like owning the truth, owning our own experience in it, and being honest and exercising, the core of all fundamental religion, which is forgiveness.
Forgiveness really is. Yeah, so much about forgiveness. Go ahead, Sue.
Can I ask you a question a little to the left? Do you still keep in touch with your family and anybody that's still in the church?
Yeah, so we come from families that are like there's 6 kids in both of our families. And then our parents, and at first we are in touch with every single family member that we have. That's the easiest answer. And we've actually been able to heal and improve a significant number of relationships. My parents being one of them. There was a moment where the problem with my mom was just our codependence together. Like our relationship was like entirely codependent. And so I had to kind of break up with her, but we've come back stronger in all of the relationships. There are still a few relationships that are not as deep and vulnerable as we would desire, but we also can really honor where, you know, where we're at is not some people's favorite thing, but that's
Right.
okay.
Very well
Yeah.
put.
Yeah, that's some people's favorite thing. What was I going to say?
You can't
So are
please
you the
everyone.
oldest? Yeah. Are you the oldest, Carolee, of the six, or is that why you're so tight with your mom?
I'm
Or
the
your
oldest
relationship
daughter.
was so? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I have a younger daughter who's actually, I mean, a younger sister who's 15 years younger than me, and it's just the
Oh,
two of
wow.
us girls, and then there was 4 boys. But
Bunch of
yeah,
brothers.
the
Okay.
oldest daughter thing, like there's a lot of differences in
Yeah.
how my mom and I
Oh, for
are than my mom and my sister for sure. But my mom, truly, when you do the inner work, this goes for like regardless of religion, right? If you do the inner work, there will be people that aren't quite ready to be in that same space, and the friendships will naturally just fade away. Or sometimes it's not so natural, sometimes it's sudden and abrupt and like this quick door slammed. But those relationships that are really capable of being heart centered will stay and will change, but will improve. That's been what we've discovered, right? Like, and there have been endings. One of the reasons, like what Britton mentioned, we went through the church stuff. We left the church. We began this journey of increasing our emotional intelligence and truly choosing into healing. And ultimately, that led us to actually sell our house. We had this home that we had built in this beautiful, like, newish neighborhood in an ideal, like, location in Utah. And we decided to sell it, and we decided to sell everything in it. And so, like, we sold our house and everything because we had this pull from neighbors. Like there was this push away from the community. So we did have a lot of things end. There was like this rupture, this closing, this our kids won't play with your kids stuff that was actually legitimately happening, right? And we didn't feel like we belonged anymore in the community that we were in. But we were open to discovering where we could belong. And that led us to people thought we lost our minds. And some people in that neighborhood, literally to this day, think we went off our rocker. And I just kind of laugh because that's a great thing for people to think. It just gets them curious. And curiosity can breed so much beauty. But
Mhm.
we moved our family to Bali, actually. And
Oh my God.
yeah, we
Where
moved.
are you right now?
No, we're in Colorado now. See, we're
Okay.
just a little bit wild, and we like to have fun, and we decided that we
I love
weren't
it.
going to live small anymore. That we had all these chains and these restrictions in this life that was beautiful and really is beautiful for some people, but for us it was like not actually like our destiny. Our soul blueprint wanted something different. And we had to break free and say goodbye and close doors. And that led on this incredible journey. We were nomadic for 18 months in total. And that's a whole, like, we went more than Bali. And ultimately, where we are now is Colorado. But
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So like when you guys think about, the metaphor of like being chained to something, and when you recognize that you had the key and the key was laying by you the whole time, and you see that you were you were the key to your own freedom, and when you set
Yes.
yourself free from something, that realization, especially if it's a very stark, deep binding like we had within the church and within our relationship because of the church's teachings. And again, some of the church's teachings are beautiful, but they're just ill placed. Like they don't fully grasp the concept of people's free will, and there's this God that judges you and everything. So there's parts of it that aren't very good, but the core teachings of all religion will take you back to the Creator. I do believe that. But when we unlocked our freedom in the religious sector, in the spiritual personal divinity connection place of our life, it was so clear because of that the oppression that we had been feeling, that we could do this in every part of our life. We could do it in our relationship. We could do it with our children. We could do it in the way that we wanted to educate our family. We could do it in our sex life. We could do it in the way that we connected with the divine. And then we realized we were true co-creators, that we're all actually just these beautiful co-creators. All of humanity is co-creating. We're just, most of us, like 90%, are probably doing it very unconsciously. And so we're creating these realities that we actually don't enjoy. So Carolee and I wanted to step into where we were consciously co-creating, not unconsciously. And so we became this team. And when you create anyway, you're trying to do it from a place of alignment, because alignment is coherence. Coherence is strength and amplitude. So when you have all of that in your creation, your alignment and the connection between us amplifies it even further, then you're able to manifest realities. And what we realized is we could do this, and we started doing it consciously. And one of the things that we did was we called in this home that we're at, this beautiful acreage in Colorado. We had any place in the world we could have gone, but we were led here. And it was in a period of about, I mean, from the moment we decided to come to Colorado to the moment that we actually found this place was about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
So it's
awesome.
an intense portal of manifestation, but we're living proof that this can be done. And in companionship with others, we want to teach people how to align their union so that they can co-create as well.
Yes.
I love how you said once you got out of the, the hardest bind that you found was religion, and then breaking out of that and realizing you could do it in so many other avenues of your life. I mean, you've heard that how you do one thing is how you do all things. So I can just imagine, how that key, like once you unfolded that big one, what a gift.
Truly.
What a hard gift, right? But like, it's so nice to be like, oh, that formula works over here and over here. Is that how you got your method?
The message came through alignment as well, but a different kind of alignment. See, as we were in the depths of the healing, right? We're talking, this is in that 2019, 2020, we're in the thick of it, and everybody's going through COVID too. Like it was this intensity, and we were in this own darkness in our relationship, really trying to root it out. I was given a book, and the book was about bathing, taking baths. It literally began with a bath. I started taking a bath, and the book was called Moon Baths. So I started taking baths that were astrologically like connected to the moon. The moon, our bodies are like 70, 80% water. The moon has this pull on us on this level, this energy that we can't actually see. And so I started bathing. It was like a full moon winter bath, and I would blend these teas together and pour the tea into the bath, and I'd light candles, and I'd eat chocolate, and I'd have wine, and I'd have this experience with myself in this bath with music, because I didn't really have very many experiences that I actually enjoyed being with myself at that point in time. Things were really, really hard. And so like the bath became a ritual, and I didn't even really know what ritual was at that point. And I began to grow an apothecary, because now I was buying all this. We cleaned out the shelf in our big bathroom. He was so mad because the minute it was clean, I started filling it with oddly shaped jars and herbs. And he's like, "What are you doing? We needed this shelf." And I was like, "You're right, we did. Thank you." So like I began to bathe with the moon, and it just became this thing that like my body wouldn't not let me, like I had to do it. And then he started joining, and we started talking, and we started processing in that bath experience together. And then it just was this real organic dance where I began to realize, oh my goodness, the moon has different personalities at different times of the year. And those personalities are reflecting through to us. And oh my goodness, astrology is actually the blueprint of the personalities, of the trances, of these energies. It blew my mind. I'd start reading astrologers, and I'd be like, they are perfectly describing the very thing that I recognized about myself today. How do they know? Right? And so like our method connects you with yourself through an astrological lens and syncs you to the moon to illuminate your shadows, so that you are held by
Ooh.
the cosmos in doing the work to heal. That's like the high level beauty
Ooh.
poetic way of saying it. But there's a lot of like technical details that are important to kind of understand and flow with. But it really could literally be as simple as, oh my goodness, did you all know that today the moon is full in Scorpio? So literally, you could all connect with the moon energy today. It's really fun to do on a full moon. You drop a bath, you light a few candles, get a yummy drink, play some music, and be like, I'm bathing with the moon. It'll change your life.
Yeah, I was watching the moon in the last few nights because I'm like, is it full now? Is it full now? So it's tonight, and it's Scorpio.
Well, yeah. So the moon actually was already full. It
Okay.
was full
Yeah.
like at around 10 o'clock this morning.
Okay.
That's MST. I don't know where everyone is. But yes, the moon was full today. We're still in the full moon portal. Yeah. And it is in the sign
Scorpio.
of Scorpio. So Scorpio has its own themes. And then where it lands on each one of your unique birth charts has something to say about how this moon's affecting you personally. So you can go really like broad with it. Full moon, Scorpio, release, celebration, letting go, endings. Those are just the generic themes. Or you can get really into the depth of what it shows you about yourself. Yeah, it's
And
really
we started out with just doing very bare without even knowing the astrological components.
Mhm.
It was just this connection to the moon, and I was brought into it because she showed me just how powerful it can be. Let's just say that, and I will say that, you know, like this became something of how a way we did the shadow work. So we would sit in the bath, and then just through, you remember how I was talking about alignment? Remember, if
Mhm.
you're aligned, you're coherent, your field is higher amplitude, right? There's not like this noise in it. And when you're connected to, think about waveforms, right? The moon is a sinusoidal wave. It goes from full to new. So it increases and decreases, and then it just moves in this fashion. And actually, if we look at every astrological celestial body, we look at our bodies, our individual bodies, we look at everything, everything has a pattern of movement and amplitude and frequency. So when we connect with the moon, which is one of the main primary bodies that govern this planet through, and specifically emotionally, the moon does that. When we align ourselves to that energy, and that's what a full moon or a new moon connection can be, then we actually synchronize our energy to it. Does that make sense? So we're actually aligning our vibration to the moon's influence. And when we do that, then our minds are opened to deeper reflections of intuition and emotional understanding. And this is what took place in our bodies. We were like, well, all of a sudden we can see these, kind of like getting a download, right? We can feel, oh, yeah, now I can see it this way. It's like almost being on a psychedelic journey. It's not as intense, but it's like you get to see things and have those intuitive hits that you otherwise might be harder to get.
Like the veil
That
got
is very
removed a little
cool.
bit. And for
Exactly.
both of you at the same time, like you're both
Yeah,
gonna
it's
get in
super
the
in
full
sync.
reveal.
It's super in sync, yeah.
Yeah, especially now how we refine this. At the beginning, it was just a slow process, right? But like now what we do every day, what we're even going to do today is very clear. And the inspiration just comes in through a really clear channel. And we get to then enjoy each other in that. So there's a lot of that, you know, when you're manifesting or when you're releasing, like it's always good to feel good. Like the feelings that come through a union that's really rooted in heart coherence and like love and trust and safety, right? I had to, so much of my journey, we say that we sold everything and we went around the world. Well, all of that actually was this deep journey of coming home into ourselves as individuals. And there were moments that were, I mean, I remember on the North Shore of Bali, I'm like, I have no home. I'm a mom to 4 kids. I'm in paradise, but I don't even know if I want to be in my marriage. Like we had deep moments during our travels. We're like, what did I have nothing. What am I even doing with my life? Right. And you're like deep in those existential
Yeah.
questions of like trying to put back the pieces of yourself. But what we learned through healing was actually, it's not, we're uncovering, unmasking the pieces that tried to control our true essence. It wasn't the journey of healing is the journey of remembering who we truly are and like loving every part of ourselves. So like I finally was able to regain trust in him when I actually felt the deepest trust in myself that I'd ever felt. It wasn't until that moment. It wasn't until me on a 11-day priestess held initiate kind of journey in the Sahara Desert where I really had to sit with myself and find my bottom line. It wasn't until that moment that I could truly come back to the partnership and say, okay, like I trust that my body knows like everything about what I need for myself. And I knew that that was in our invitation. Like, it was like, can you meet me here now? And he could, like, we had done so much of our own inner work that we could finally meet as like sovereign individuals. And it was not until that point that the trauma left my body. I was living with the residual effects of it for a long time. And it was a lot of different processes and things, ways to heal. But it truly was that commitment to come home to myself that helped it so that I could now rise in this exciting union with him. We have good days and we have hard days, and we still have 4 kids, you know, we love our kids, but they're also, they're major teachers all the time too, you know? And so it's like life hasn't necessarily changed.
But
But
the way that we confront, the way that we're
yeah,
present, the way that we meet life, that's
it's
drastically
like
changed,
so
right?
different, you
Because
know?
then we know when one of us is triggered or one of us is in that place where we know that we're like annoyed at each other. There's something. It's not actually about the other. It's something else that needs to be addressed. So we just hold space. We learn to just accept and hear each other's truths without, you know, feeling offended and taking that, you know, personally. And we hold space for each other, and then we can we're allowing each other to grow and heal. That's what we do. So that's our way of life now. And actually, it's the way of life that we want to help others step into, and because we know it has the greatest payback, the greatest benefits of any other way of living. So not just for yourself, not just for your relationships, but also for the whole planet. And I'm not saying this like in a, oh, it light and love, whatever. It's the truth. Like when we are so emotionally unintelligent as a species, but this is the reason we're here. We're trying to gain that intelligence. So hey, let's all get on it. Let's get it on the bandwagon and do the work.
Let's do the thing.
And now,
Like
is your books going to help us connect with all of this?
Yeah, the book,
The book.
Ritual Shadow Work.
Yes, ritual shadow work. And
so the book is about the process of the connecting with the moon and etc.
Each other.
etc.
yeah, and so let me kind of give you the high level of the book. So basically it's about doing shadow work, which is the work of working with your unconscious energy. That's what the shadow is, right? And allowing yourself to meet that in a true honest space within. And it's the intersection of that work with astrology, and basically the moon is what we're kind of like focused on. We don't need to drop into all the deep, because astrology is like a rabbit hole, man. Like you can get lost in there so quick.
Yeah.
So we just make it simple. Is we're working with the moon and the phases of the moon. We have 3: the full moon, the new moon, and a phase called the dark moon, which is a very important part of the inner shadow work. And then we also intersect that with sexuality. Because like I said, you know, when we freed ourselves from the bonds of religion and that oppression, part of it was very sexual, like in nature, you know, like, and, you know, one of the reasons that I was seeking outside of the marriage, and most of it was emotional, almost entirely was emotional, you know, seeking, but it was sexually tinged. But like I needed that sexual connection. And so when we finally owned the truth that we were like not happy sexually, then we could both finally say, okay, well, what can we do to solve that? And we did a lot of things. And part of it was as we opened up to each other in honesty and in truth and doing the shadow work and just speaking our feelings, that created a container within our relationship that allowed us to drop into our sexually more deep emotionally experience. So we're like opening up our hearts and our bodies sexually, right, to each other. And this created some very, very magical moments in our sex relationship. And so we're like, oh, and what we realize is we can actually use this energy, you know, like again, consciously directing energy is the goal here. So we're consciously directing our sex energy into the shadow work. We're directing it into the alignment with the moon. So we're building more amplitude. And when you do this, you just create these incredibly potent, you could call them portals, you could call them timeline shifts, you can call them whatever you want, but it's this moment where you're shifting, you're calling in a shift, or you're stepping into the shift, because there is a difference. One is conceptual, one is more, more solidified or concrete in your action. It's like an aligned action. So a big part of our story, a big part of it revolves around the sexual experience and how we healed that.
The thing I feel like is on everybody's minds a little bit is, what does your day look like? 4 kids, radical self-care, timeline shifting, like, because my day today went like that, and I have like 1 kid. But can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, apply it to
Yeah,
the
sure.
masses.
People are gonna think, oh, that's just, yeah, exactly. Like, it's just them. Believe me, we're average. We're very average people. We're not like sitting in meditation for 2 hours a day. We're lucky if we get to do it twice a week. Okay, like
Nice.
that's honest. Like we just aren't. We're what's really true for us is just being present with our experience. Yeah, we've got 4 kids, so we're up. In the morning, if I feel empowered enough, I'll get up and meditate before the children get up. If not, I'm up and waking them up, and then we help them get moving through the morning. We get them out the door usually by 8, and then we start to drop into like our breakfast and that sort of thing. And by 10, we're jumping into the office, which is actually our temple space here, and we start to do the busy work a little bit, and maybe do some creation and that sort of thing. And we kind of try to stay in there for a few hours. And then, the kids come home and we got to re-engage and just be normal parents and like live that embodied, empowered parenthood life. But we do these things, and we do make time for them. And a lot of times it's like at night, we're kind of night owls. We're just that way. We like to
Okay.
stay up. I was telling you, from 9 to midnight is when we were doing a lot of shadow work in the early
Right.
2020s and stuff. So, but we still love being night owls and taking baths. We'll be in a bath ritual tonight for sure. But I don't know. We do have some structure. Maybe you can speak about Moon Day and some of the other things.
Yeah, so today, Monday, we actually live by the adage that it's Moon Day. Like, I really
Cute.
obviously
Love that.
love the moon. Okay.
Well, in Spanish, Monday is lunes.
Lundi,
Lunes,
like
yeah.
That's right.
each day of the week actually has a planetary ruler, right? Like, again, astrology geeking out here is so hard. But there's a planetary rulership. Friday is Venus Day. So like Friday date night is actually really aligned with the energies that are already present for Venus. So Moon Day is a day that's really good to tend to our emotions. We do coaching, and we do like I teach. I have a couple different kind of magic programs that I teach for this alignment. So we'll have calls scheduled throughout the week with people, but I don't actually take any of that client work on Mondays at all. Like, in fact, doing these kind of podcasts on Mondays, they feed my emotions, right? This really feeds me emotionally. So I like let myself have fun and connect and hang out in a room with people, and like talk and have a good time.
Right.
But we really try to honor this planetary alignment because it really holds our day, right? So today, being that there was a full moon, I really prioritize my spiritual workings as part of my day too, right? We have an altar. I'll tend to my altar. I'll sit with it. It's a living thing for me that I'm really excited to like work with, because it's part of the magical workings that we do with the moon, and the moon there's so many layers. It's a 6-month cycle. So we can see that in how we're doing the work, but we've literally had magic come into our lives, like such like unexplainable things that don't necessarily make sense, but are really, really beautiful. And we can tell in the story that it's come through living this aligned way, right? And we have help too. My sister lives with us, and she is the kid's chauffeur, right? So like we're able to not have to stop the flow of what's important for our soul work, um, to have to engage with the kids in the driving capacity. So we really couldn't do what we're doing without that support right now. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's because we kind of live up in a little bit in the backcountry, and so it's like 30 minutes to everything, right? So it's like an
Oh,
hour to
wow.
drop a kid off. So yeah, so like it's an important, like we recognize this and we actually called it in. And so like we can, instead of like the old way of doing things is to seek and search and find and like put in all this effort to, but the more aligned way of doing that is to call in something when it's aligned with you, when it's needed in your life, and you know that it is, and if you're aligned to calling it in, then life just presents you the option. We've did this many times when we called it in help, and it's always it seems to always come in the form of extra women in our life. So that's an important part of how we come and approach the altar of asking, essentially. And like we come before life and say, hey, we really need this thing. In the old Mormon paradigm, it was like, please God, take away all my pain, blah blah blah. But now it's like, oh, I can deal with the pain. I'll just continue to do my shadow work, but will you send this help that I need?
That's
And
such a neat
That's
shift. Kim, that reminds me of
very
what you
magical.
say with the how is not our job.
Let go, enjoy the ride. The how is not your job. Oh, trust.
Yeah.
Trust, let go. Enjoy
Because
the ride.
there's like, because it's, I think we, as humans, we so get caught up in the, how am I going to get it? So I love how you just said that. I think that's really practical wisdom.
not only is it practical wisdom, but it's an important part of how we manifest, because if you're stuck in the how, what you're doing is you're actually limiting possibility.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you stay out of that, you're a co-creator. Everything you think, feel, say, and do is creating in a reality at some point, at some energy level. And if you align all four of those actions, then it's a very powerful thing. However, if you stick in the how and you're like, oh, it's going to happen because I'm going to make enough money, or I'm going to save up, or I'm going to do this or whatever, then what you're basically saying is, universe, there is only about 1 or 2 ways that you can make this happen for me, because I'm going to steal most of the glory. But if we just hand that over to life and say, you know what? I just know it's going to work out the way it's supposed to, but I'm aligned with this, then the universe gets all of the glory, and it has this beautiful interactive play and fun with you and how it manifests.
And then
That
you
is
get the
beautiful.
glorious outcome.
Yes. When you sold everything, right, and you hopped on an aeroplane, and of course you've got to get rid of all the baggage if you want to fly. And once you got your lives back on track again, did you find you were sort of in a bit of a minimalist mindset, or not really? I mean, I know you've got 4 kids, so I'm using the term minimalist relatively because you have to have things.
yeah, so what we learned a lot through the letting go of everything. I want to just speak to that real quick. We had
Mhm.
that was quite the challenge, and yet in that challenge, we realized, oh, I don't really need any of this stuff. There was so much freedom. To this day, there are like 1 or 2 things that I do think about that I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't have gotten rid of that. But then I sit with it for a minute and I'm like, maybe I'm okay. There's still moments, but we narrowed it down to like what could fit in our friend's basement in like a 10 by 10 space. We
Okay.
had some bins. I had like 7 bins of Christmas decor that I've narrowed down to just 1.
It's really
like
what fit in the back of a van. It wasn't even 10 by 10. It was like
yeah,
small.
it was so this small thing, right? And then we moved to Bali and we had like 27 pieces of luggage altogether. We really thought we were moving there. So we brought some key
Okay.
pieces. And then while we were in Bali, we were there for 5 months. We discovered midway that, oh, wait a minute, Bali's not home. We actually need to travel the world. How are we going to do this? We have too much stuff and we don't want to leave it in Bali. Some of it was like a wedding gift blanket that I didn't want to travel the world with, but I didn't want to get rid of,
Yeah.
and so there was this beautiful moment that we ended up having with my mother where we actually were able to fly her out to be in Bali with us. Mom, come see us in
Ooh,
Bali. And then she took home all the
Oh, that's
luggage.
lovely.
a whole bunch of
We
stuff.
paid extra for her to like take all this luggage back.
Yeah.
So we narrowed ourselves down to like 6 things. But as we traveled from place to place in Bali, we stayed in how many?
I think it was 12 different places in 5 months.
Yeah. We realized more and more how little we needed and how much how more free it felt to kind of shed and shed and shed. So we kept shedding and trying to like really narrow our luggage down because it was overwhelming to move with 4 kids and all these things, you know? And so then we left Bali, we went to Vietnam. We stayed in maybe 4 places in Vietnam over like a month. And then we went to France and we went to Paris, the Loire Valley, and then we settled in the south of France for 2.5 months and we didn't move. And it was
So blissful.
so beautiful. And I was there because I really connect deeply with Mary Magdalene and felt really called to like activate the ley lines and have that remembrance. And then we shot from there into Ireland, England, doing Harry Potter for 10 days with the kids, and Scotland, which then ended in Egypt. You know, and so this whole journey was a very like soul pilgrimage, and we had a woman that traveled with us, and we really saw that from place to place to place, not very many things were crucial, right? And so now that we're back and we've landed, we lived in Egypt and then we came back to the States and now we're in Colorado. We were fortunate enough to land in a home that had some furnishings here that were provided, you know, but we did have to like buy mattresses and we've been able to like start slowly accumulating again. And in some regard, it's like, I don't really want to spend money on things that I don't really, really love. I found my full yes, which in some ways means that I'm still living with a lot of my no's because like it takes time to rebuild a home afterwards, right? But it is this beautiful journey of letting go that also gifted us clarity of what really matters. And I will end this answer with one thing we learned about what kids really need. Okay, there's 2 things that are like more important than anything else. Legos and stuffed animals. That's like out of everything, it's Legos and stuffed animals. And then
Yeah, just a note to all
So
the parents
sweet.
out there, stop buying things for your kids. They just need Legos and stuffies.
there you
While
go.
we're talking about that, you guys, I like just touched on something about your kids' school before, and I kind of wanted to ask a little bit more about that,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
if
so
that's okay.
yeah, that's totally fine. We actually, you know, started out with this idea that academics needed to happen early on in a child's life. Our oldest was reading by the time he was 5 and attended a very like private, religious, highly academic elementary school. But as we began to heal and seek in deeper emotional intelligence spaces, we learned about Waldorf and the philosophies behind that approach to education. And so we completely had to detach entirely from the old systems. And there was even a strong period for our oldest, he did the private school, a charter school, and then he was homeschooled. He did unschooling and then the world schooling. And now he's back in like this private, very alternative school here in Boulder. And so it's like we've had this very like big shift in regards to how we educate our children as well. Um, our children are various, very aligned programs that have a lot of the Waldorf ideologies intermixed into it. Or like there's another program called Enki, which is also very nature based. But we did unfortunately have an experience recently where one of the programs had to they had to close down that some of our children were attending. So we actually do have one of our kids now in the local elementary. He just barely started like April. So, but the local Lyons is a really quaint, cute little town, and out of you know, I wouldn't necessarily an elementary school locally. That's not my first pick, but it actually has a lot of beautiful things that do work, and it seems like it actually is holding him in a really lovely way.
Well, and he's you know just turning 9, and so he's actually spent the 6 years in Waldorf-based schools, and he's showing that inclination, that personal inclination towards STEM. And so, like we're feeling like the shift is good. He's feeling it, like we're checking in with him. But like schooling of our children is something that we take very serious. And actually, when we moved to Colorado, we were seeking the schools first. And it was when we found those school programs that we were like, okay, now we can come here to this part of Colorado because we know that we can put our kids in these school systems. So very important to us. We're very conscious about like the education that we're offering and the soul development that we're offering our children.
Fantastic. I was wondering if you picked your place based on the schools.
Yeah.
And by the way, the world schooling, the traveling, the stuff that we did with the world, the kids had like 10 years of education in that. It was so powerful for them. And when they came back and they dropped back into their communities and stuff, then they realized it was like that was when the integration was taking place. Then they realized like how powerful it had actually been for them. They're like, wow, because when you're in it and you're that little, you don't really know, and then when you when you land in, you're like, oh my gosh, my parents just did the most cool thing ever.
Yeah.
No doubt. I know, especially like, Utah, like I'm sure that the communities are quite small and tight. So what a treat for them. Wow. Okay. Well, I wish we could go on all night, but
is Colorado home? I have to ask. Is that home? To have your wings? Like, are they rested for the moment?
Yeah, Colorado definitely is. In fact, we call our home Anahata, which is the Sanskrit word for the heart chakra. We've both lived lives where we actually haven't been rooted, even from our childhood. And so this was a real beautiful new chapter in both of our lives as, conscious adults who get to choose where we really feel aligned to live. And we have this beautiful 46 acres with a river that's here in the mountains of Colorado with really beautiful community. But there is something that still calls. We love to travel.
We definitely love to travel, and we're feeling the itch again to just go out and keep the home base, but go and explore.
Yeah,
somewhere.
not let go of it this time. But there was something too that was so profoundly powerful in not going home between visits, like the travel of the Bali into the Vietnam, into France, into like we could really feel the shift. I had never traveled that way before. I'd always gone one place and then back and then next place and then back. That was its own experience anyway.
Absolutely amazing. Well, here at Bombastic Broadcasting, we like to think that a rising tide lifts all boats. So when is your book coming out again?
So we anticipate
I'm actually dying to read it.
Thank you.
Can we move it along? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm working actively on it. Yes. In fact, I was doing a chapter 2 days ago. So, but yes, the book is called Ritual Shadow Work, and we're targeting the fall. And it should, I think that's a pretty conservative, like we should be able to hit that target. So, but the way to get, into our system, where Carolee and I we're working with couples. We're actually teaching this method right now, Ritual Shadow Work. So it's a program as well as a book that's already active, and we can teach it. And it's a beautiful way of allowing people to kind of connect with this. We're developing the method for, beginners, right? And then they can go to the website, themagicalstoryofus.com. That will just, connect you to our journey, our message, and, can join our mailing list right now and get ready for the release of the book and stuff.
Right. And the teachings that we do too, like you said, we have active clients where we teach them the ritual shadow work method and hold them through it. But then also we have another option where we teach just very basic moon magic alignment. But it's basic, but it's catered to the person. So like, for example, Kim, if you're like, oh, I really want to try, a session with me would show you your astrology, your placements, and help prepare you for the next moon phase that you want to work with. It's personalized, right? So we have that program that people can jump in and have a session at any time to like craft their own alignment with the moon. But then the book will cover it in a really beautiful way that will give this method, but
Yeah, and I just want to add one other thing, Kim. Thank you. We do have a program. We work with couples that are have undergone the experience of infidelity, and we help them reestablish everything. We have this very methodical approach to it, of establishing the relationship through trust and honesty, integrity, and then building from that place into this beautiful, very emotionally connective, honest relationship that is based around everybody's understanding of their own sovereignty. We're not pulled into relationships. We don't have to be bound to them. When we choose into them 100%, that is where the power comes from. So we want to teach people how to be power couples and improve their sex life, improve their emotional connectivity, and learn how to do the work together.
I think that's such an important thing for people today. It just seems like we in our town, people got older than you guys probably, but then everybody's just getting divorced. Bam, 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 bam. It's like crazy. What a wonderful resource to offer the world.
Thank you.
We're not that young either. I don't know what you're referring to.
Their travels have just kept them glowing.
There you go.
Oh, all right. Well, until the next time, folks, be co-creators, be moonbathers, and be heart coherent and forgiving.
Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. So much more in this world that you can do. Wake up. Every little thing in this life that you're going through don't mean a thing. Wake up. You keep shining. You keep grinding. Wake up. All is aligning. All you gotta do. Wake up. My man Mo said that the reason that the world fucked up is cause everybody lazy. Positivity is corny to them, but they still gon' complain about the bad going on. Shit crazy. So I just had to drop a little project. I don't know what the object is, but this feels good. If you too hood for the good vibe, sorry I ain't got nothing for you, why should I?
You shouldn't. We out here doing the things that y'all wouldn't. Life could be a sweet ride, proof is in the pudding. These guys with the weak vibes, I'll show them where to put it. Down bad, I was looking for the answer. Mind all mad, taking over like a cancer. Canceled the sub plans, came from up above. Told me everything but doing, showing love, and I gotta wake up.
So much more in this world that you can do. Wake up. Every little thing in this life that you're going through don't mean a thing. Wake up. You keep shining. You keep grinding. Wake up. All is aligning. All you gotta do. Wake up.
I've been getting so high, head up in the clouds. I don't ever wanna come down, but I gotta
wake up.
Ain't enough time to be down. Bust a smile, cause it's yet another day that I'm allowed to
wake up.
Feeling blessed to be alive, man. Not long till we thriving. Take the time to remind yourself that it all starts inside yourself.
Wake up feeling stuck every day, then you gotta realize that it's all in your mindset. Read about that meditation, you go get around to it, you just haven't had the time yet. Yeah, I bet. Best thing that you could invest in is you. Could have the results or could have the excuse. Only one life, so take care of what you choose. And I ain't preaching, I'm just telling you the truth. Wake up. So much more in this world that you can do. Wake up. Every little thing in this life that you're going through don't mean a thing.